I want to show you something else. This might also piss you off. So I'm
Okay,
sorry.
what? Do that because now I'm sad.
I know. I'm sorry in advance. So here's the Jack uh, apology. This morning, getting ready for the show, I'm on Twitter, and over here on the right hand side of Twitter, we all have these things like relevant people they recommend, what's happening, right? So the thing in what's happening, which has since been updated, but my thing in what's happening said something other than this. Right now it says there's no record of Joe Biden using the term super predator. Okay, I don't know if that's true, but whatever. It doesn't matter. They're going to say it. They're going to say he said a super predator, not super predator. Who knows? Okay, so over here was a link to a different thing, and it was this. It said Joe Biden did not push the Ukrainian prosecutor for investigating his son, the Washington Post reports. So this showed up for me. Ah, crap. I don't know what I just did. There we go. This showed up for me right over here on the right-hand side. And it didn't have any, like, it wasn't like click for a news story so I could read the story or find out where it came from. It just said this. So I clicked on that, and it brought me to this page. And I was like, okay, so maybe this is a news article. I'm going to go get to see who wrote it, what they say, what the explanation is. But it doesn't appear to be that either. It just says politics, right? Joe Biden did not push out a Ukrainian prosecutor for investigating his son, the Washington Post reports. Okay. Where is there a link to a Washington Post story about this? No. What does it say? Let's just read it. A series of emails obtained by the New York Post. So this is them. By the way, they are now trying to build. Twitter is pushing this. This looks like it must have been written by Twitter, by the way. There's no byline here. So let's assume this must be written by Twitter, put on the Twitter feed on the right to push a counter narrative. Okay, what does it say? A series of emails obtained by the New York Post were published on Wednesday in a story alleging that Hunter Biden, the son of Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, introduced his father to a top executive at Ukrainian energy firm Burisma, and that Biden pushed for the firing of a prosecutor investigating Burisma. However, according to the Washington Post, no links, by the way, no article, then Vice President Biden played no role in pressuring Ukrainian officials into firing the prosecutor, who also was not investigating the energy firm. It also doesn't detail whether the elder Biden actually met with Hunter's Ukrainian business associate. Now, I looked for this Washington Post article. There was an article from 2019 that made these claims, but obviously such an article would not have been written after the release of this hard drive. I did find a more recent analysis from the Washington Post, and actually, I don't even know if I even have it. Hold on, I might have it up here. Yeah. Here's the recent analysis, October 15th, on Biden's and Ukraine. Wild claims with little basis. Okay, so let's hear the other side. Here's their points. What did Biden do in Ukraine? They just explained what I said, $50,000 a month for his, quote, service. They say, well, he's a lawyer by training, so therefore he was worth $50K a month to a Ukrainian gas company to sit on their board, okay? What's wrong with that? Nothing. Maybe some bad judgment because it looks bad, but nothing, okay? By the way, nothing, neither of those points negate anything that was in the hard drive, okay? Why did Burisma come under scrutiny? Its founder was swept from off, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. He was the natural resources minister under a president who was swept from office. There was corruption claims. Okay, money laundering. Okay. What criminal charges? None. There was no criminal charges at the end of the day. Okay, well, fine. That doesn't matter either. What does Trump say? Without substantiation, Trump has said and tweeted that the Biden family was paid off, pure and simple. Well, he's got reason to believe that. Yeah, it's a claim, but he's got reason to believe it. Where does Joe Biden fit in? He was the point person for the Ukraine. And then what evidence suggests that Biden's motive? Pretty much none. Evidence. So I just want to point something out here. The sleight of hand, there's a few sleight of hands that are happening. One is, in number 4 here, they say, quote, there's also no known evidence that any of the investigations ever involved Hunter Biden. That's never been the claim. No one has ever claimed that the investigations involved Hunter Biden. The claim is the investigations, they were investigating the company, and the company hired Hunter Biden for an exorbitant fee to sit on a board and introduce them to his father, who could make the investigations go away. That is the claim. It has nothing to do with investigating Hunter Biden. But they've moved the goalpost here and said, well, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Well, no one said it did. The other claim that I've seen the Washington Post make is say, well, there was no investigation. The investigation was dead. Well, maybe that's debatable, but it's certainly debatable, which makes it a point of contention here that should be talked about. Shokin, the guy who was fired, the prosecutor, he actually he argued that as a result, Biden curtailed an objective investigation, criminal proceedings on the facts of unlawful activities of persons associated with the company Burisma Holdings, including the son of a specific high-ranking official. Shokin, this is the guy who was fired, that Biden got fired, that Biden brags about getting fired. So that's the other thing. Biden bragged about getting him fired.
Let me jump in on that because people pointing that out in the chat. There's video.
Yeah, here's the video. I have the video. Do you want it?
No, I want to read this. There's video of Biden bragging about this, and you can watch it with your own eyes. I don't want to play it because I just don't want to.
It's fine. It's whatever. Right
here. Here's the transcript though, where he's bragging, and he says, "This is from January 23rd, 2018." He says, "And I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kiev in terms of corruption. I'll give you one concrete example. But it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. And so I got to Ukraine. And I remember going over, convincing our team, our leaders, convincing them that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, in the 12th or 13th time to Kiev. And I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from, how do you say that guy's name? Yatsenyuk, that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to a press conference. I said, nah, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. And then people laugh when he says this. And he says, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here in, I think it was about 6 hours. I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. And everyone laughs. He got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. So they made some genuine, substantial changes institutionally and with people. But one of the three institutions, there's now some backsliding. That's him bragging.
Right. The video's right here, which I guess we could have just played, but we didn't. So,
well,
Carrie played the part of Joe Biden sitting here bragging.
Yeah.
So look, Shokin is this guy that Biden pushed to get fired. And Shokin specifically says that he's referring to a documentary that was released about Ukraine Gate. He said, which challenges the Western media claims that the corruption investigation into Burisma was dormant at the time Biden was lobbying for Shokin's dismissal. So the Western media, providing cover for the Bidens, has been arguing, well, he wasn't actually in the middle of investigating. And the other thing that you'll hear them say is, well, actually, because I've seen this argument. Actually, Shokin wasn't investigating, and that was the problem. And so actually, Biden wanted him fired because he wasn't doing a good job investigating corruption. He wanted someone to better at investigating. It was the opposite. Look, we don't know the truth, but what we do know is that this smells really bad. There's a lot of evidence here to suggest that there's a problem. And if it were anyone else, if it were anyone that the cathedral, that was not in the good graces of the cathedral, that wasn't part of the cathedral's plans, that person would have to answer a lot of very direct and probing questions about what the hell was going on in the Ukraine. Why was your son getting paid 50K a month to sit on a board? Why was he getting requests to meet with you. Why did you meet with the board people? Why did you then fire this prosecutor? Now, the other thing that or push for the firing of the prosecutor, the other thing that a lot of the Western media will say is, well, this is false because everyone supported getting rid of that prosecutor. Other people in Europe wanted that prosecutor gone, and so it was lauded as a good thing that Biden did. That may be true. Maybe it was lauded as a good thing that Biden did. Who cares? That's not relevant to why. That's not relevant to the conflict of interest. It's not related, right? Maybe his thing that he did to help Burisma happened to be something that other people in the EU wanted done. That doesn't matter. It still needs to be investigated. And if this were anyone else, it would. Well, except for the Clintons, it wouldn't be. But if it were anyone else, this would be investigated.
That's the story again. Because we can get lost in the details of Biden's dealings with the Ukraine and his son and Burisma, but the bigger story is that if it were Trump, it would be nonstop. They impeached Trump over something that Joe Biden presumably has done, arguably has done. Are they going to investigate and figure? No, they're not going to. So it's weird. You know the Saul Alinsky tactics, right? Rules for radicals, which we've talked about before. You hold your enemy, and they all follow this. They've mentioned Saul Alinsky before. You hold your enemy to a different standard than yourself.
Wrote a thesis on Saul Alinsky.
Yeah. They project. They accuse you of doing the things that they have done. Yep. Because then think about what Jimmy Dore talks about this a little bit. And those of you on the left, you might enjoy Jimmy Dore. He's a progressive who's talked about the big Russia hoax, the impeachment hoax and everything. They create this cloud of suspicion, and they create a lot of smoke around things that they've done. Because then if it comes out, if their dirty secrets come out, then they get to say, that's absurd that you would accuse us of this thing that we've spent 3 years investigating you for. You know what I mean? It's like, you're the one. You're the one. It's a finger pointing thing. Mm-hmm. We accused you first of that. It's like, yeah, but there's evidence that you did it.
Right. But this is how they do it. This is how the cathedral operates. And you see it. To me, one of the biggest red flags is when they're not, and this is almost always, but when they're not having an open discussion about both sides of an issue. So this is a great example. Are they having an open discussion about, like on CNN? Well, let's look at the facts about Biden's son and Hunter Biden and Burisma and blah, blah, blah. And well, there's this, but on the other hand, there's that and blah, blah, blah. And let's dig into it. Nope. They're shutting down one side and only having a narrative pushed on the other side. In fact, Twitter, as we just saw, is intentionally trying to push a different narrative than the facts that came out in the New York Post would suggest. They did the same thing with masks and COVID. Well, the doctors that say the thing that we want to be said, they get airtime. We talk about only their things, and anyone who pushes back, anyone who questions any aspect of this, automatically gets banned from YouTube, shut down, called a quack, it's a conspiracy theory, it's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. We don't have journalism, just like everything else that the left does. It's the opposite of their intent. We don't have journalism. We have anti-journalism. We have propaganda. We have misinformation. Journalism today is anti-journalism. The cathedral is trying to prevent you from finding out the truth, not trying to give you the truth to make up your mind. They're trying to prevent you from finding out the truth. That's what they do.
And again, to any liberals who are watching, because again, I've been fortunate to meet a few of you, and when you first start waking up, I know, and I can remember when it was like this for me. It's really hard to come to grips with the fact that not that you're wrong about one thing, but that something that you've believed in that's part of your foundational beliefs has been so manipulated, and that you've been misled and lied to on like your foundation, at your foundational level, right? And when you first start waking up to some of this stuff, you don't want to believe that the intelligence agencies in the US and that our legacy media and that our social media companies are all trying to feed us a false version of reality. It's like, why would they do that? That's absurd. Why, that's hard for me to swallow. You don't have to swallow it at the beginning. Just start looking. Just start looking at a few
Right.
stories. Look
Right.
at how Carter pointed this out the other day, and it's one of the first things I noticed is when they're telling you what to think. What Carter's saying, what you're saying, they're not journalists. They're the opposite of journalists.
They're the
Look
opposite
at
of
most
journalists. Yeah.
look at most legacy news articles. Look at most of the talking heads on cable news. They are telling you what to think. Really look closely at the words they choose. And then in the articles, look and see, do they include links to source material? When they're telling you what Trump said at his recent speech and what you should think about it, do they include a link where you can watch his words in context and watch the speech yourself? Do they include a transcript? Do they make it easy to find? Start looking. How often do they give you the source material? That's one little thing you can start being observant about. You don't have to change all of your beliefs overnight. You don't have to, put on some tinfoil hat. Just pay attention to the way that they are steering you towards conclusions. And they're not providing you with information. And then they're actively working to suppress stories they don't want you to read.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show that we recorded, but as I've been doing this show, because I like to look for source material, I've noticed this. You go try and find source material for anything. A video, a transcript, an email that was alleged to have been sent, even statements that were made. They don't. Mainstream media doesn't link, as a rule. They don't link to it. They don't link to it. You actually have to do a significant amount of searching to find source material. That should scare the hell out of you.
Yeah.
That should scare the hell out of you, and it should tell you something about the people that you're getting news from.
And some of the biggest examples is, let's take their favorite punching bag, the thing that everything is about because it obscures what's really going on. Trump is like the tree that you can't see the forest for. They get you so focused on this man that you can't see all this other stuff. If you look at a story like this, you think it's about Trump and Biden. It's not. I mean, it is on one level, but on a much broader, more important level, this is about media manipulation and censorship. That's what this is about.
Right.
But if you're just focused on Trump and trying to defend censorship because you hate Trump and because this is bad for Biden who's running against her, like you're playing this on this lower level here.
Right.
Look at the big picture. So, but let's for a second take that big tree that's blocking the forest for you. Look at some of the lies that they have pushed. And I'll say lie because I've gone and watched the source material and I've read the transcripts. They've pushed these lies so successfully that some of you watching probably still believe these things and are going to be shocked that somebody would say it's a lie. They pushed it so successfully that in the debates, our presidential debates, we have the legacy media figures and we have the other presidential candidate from the opposing party stating lies as truth, blatant lies. One of the biggest ones you can go watch for yourself is the Charlottesville speech.
Yep.
Where they repeat ad nauseum that he called white supremacists very fine people. He did not. He did not. Go watch the speech. Go read the transcript. He specifically denounces white supremacists in that speech. Read take one of these things and go look at it. And maybe that's the crack in your foundation that's going to make you start questioning a few other things. Remember back, if you're, I know I'm talking to liberals a lot, but like remember back to the Iraq War. Remember how they were gaslighting us and lying to us about yellow cake uranium. Remember how
that
they
was
sold
Cheney.
us this lie?
That's not Chris Cuomo.
Yeah, but you could see it then. You could see it then because it was coming from a Republican administration. I could see it then because it was coming from Bush, and I was critical of Bush, and I looked at everything and I paid attention. I stopped paying attention when Obama became president. You probably are not paying attention to the Biden stuff because you like him or, because he's not Trump. Remember how you felt when they lied to us and when the CIA and the Republican administration colluded with legacy media and colluded with networks like CNN to sell us a baseless lie. and remember how you felt. I'm saying remember that because I think some of you have forgotten. And
Yep.
it doesn't matter what party's doing it. That's why I say don't be so short-sighted. Once we've set this precedent, once we've crossed this line where we allow big social and legacy media to collude, to push with the intelligence agencies to push the narrative that they want, to push this false reality that we're living in, like that doesn't, you're not safe from that.
Right.
You're not safe from that. What
Can I
yeah.
point something out that might make the liberals feel a little bit better? I am not saying that the cathedral is leftist. I don't
It's
believe
not.
the cathedral is leftist. I believe the cathedral is statist. And they certainly have a left lean, and they certainly prefer the Democrats to the Republicans. But they absolutely will run cover for Bush's, Romney's, Cheney's, anyone that's in the Republican establishment that is McCain, anyone that is towing the duopoly line, anyone who wants to get into wars, anyone who wants to expand the government, anyone who wants to keep the deep state active, anyone who wants to expand the deep state and erode our freedoms, which Republicans do often. It's Republicans are responsible for the Patriot Act, right? So that is their agenda. It is not that they're a bunch of Democrats. They are, but that's not the primary thing. The thing that freaks them out about Trump is he's not a Republican either, right? He's not
yeah.
a deep stater. He's an
He's not a
outsider.
deep
He really
stater.
is an outsider. Yeah, he's got issues we could talk about, but he's an outsider.
And this is why I'm excited about for book club the next book that we're doing. So on Sunday we're discussing Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, but the book we're doing after that is I'm blanking on the name now, Carter.
Oh, the book after that is called Management of Savagery by Max Blumenthal.
Yeah, Management of Savagery. And this is a book that is examining the U.S. interventions in the Middle East, and it's sort of looking at some of the deep state apparatus, and it's not partisan. Again, when I say Trump is the big tree that you can't see the forest for, so is this whole this BS about right and left, this BS about Democrat and Republican, and it matters so much, One party's the good guys, one party's the bad guys. It's not true. If you think that's true, you're not paying attention to the bigger strokes that are happening. The most important thing I think people need to figure out when they look at something is this, as we've talked about, is this authoritarian,
right, or
is this individualist or libertarian? Is this about more government control? Is this about control by the media, control by the elite, control by those who want to keep us in perpetual wars, who want to shore up power and resources for the elite and keep the subservient sheep distracted by right-left stuff?
This is why when I have conversation with Nico House, with whom I disagreed with him about a lot of things, but this is why they want to keep us from having conversations across the political aisle, because at the end of the day, again, I probably disagree with a lot of fundamentally philosophically with Nico. I'm not trying to say that we agree on a bunch of stuff, but we can have a real civil conversation, and part of that conversation involves a mutual enemy, right? We might not agree on everything, but we do share a mutual enemy. And when that enemy is talked about, we both go, oh yeah, that is the enemy. And that's the enemy. That enemy is basically the state. It's a lot of it's not the state generally, but we talked about, Nico and I talked about the Federal Reserve. You talk about actions that the state has taken to set up an aristocracy of elites versus everyone else. On that, we can agree. And that's the conversation they don't want us having. They want the conversation to be, well, I like my elites, and you like your elites, and we're going to argue over which elites get into power. And so far they're winning. So far that is the conversation we're having.
We're going to argue over this false reality. We're going to argue over the false issues that they're pushing and this polarization that they've created around nonsense,
Right.
and instead of looking at what's really happening. And you know, deep state was something that, as a person on the left, we talked about it.
Of
That was
course.
that was you know, Mother Jones ran articles about it. Then Dennis Kucinich just talked about it. Suddenly, when it's someone on the right criticizing deep state, now the left, many people on the left anyway, have become such marionettes, such puppets, that they're like, oh, Trump said the deep state. Oh, then I guess I can't criticize. The deep state's not a thing because I've got to oppose everything he says and does. So suddenly
Right.
you're not concerned about the deep state anymore. You're not concerned about the war machine.
Yep. And I think just personally, the way that I look at this is not the a lot of this isn't new, but their ability to manifest their control over us has been exponentially increased in the past several years. So that's what makes this scary to me.